Have you ever wondered how one of the most powerful religious institutions in history truly began? Was it really founded by a humble fisherman, as tradition tells us? Or is there a hidden story buried beneath centuries of faith and power? Today, we embark on a journey through time, a journey to uncover the origins of the Catholic Church. But be warned. History is rarely as simple as it seems. Imagine yourself in the ancient streets of Rome, around the 1st century AD. The empire is at its peak, stretching from Britain to the Middle East. Yet, in the shadows of this colossal civilization, a small, persecuted group is gathering in secret. They speak of a man who performed miracles, who defied the authorities, and who was ultimately crucified. They claim he has risen from the dead. These are the earliest Christians. But here's the question: did they truly establish the foundation of what we now call the Catholic Church? Or was the Church shaped by forces far beyond them, by emperors, politics, and power struggles? The truth may surprise you. If you're ready to explore the hidden layers of history, subscribe to Sacred Echoes and join us on this incredible journey. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, because what we uncover next might change the way you see history forever. To understand the origins of the Catholic Church, we must begin with one man, a man of contradictions. He was bold yet fearful, loyal yet impulsive, a simple fisherman, yet called to be the foundation of something far greater than himself. His name? Simon Peter. According to the Gospels, Peter was among the first disciples of Jesus. A man of rough hands and a restless heart, he left everything behind to follow a teacher from Nazareth. And it was Peter who, in a moment of divine revelation, proclaimed, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And in response, Jesus gave him a name that would change history. "You are Peter, and on this rock, I will build my church." But here's the question: was Peter truly the first pope? Or was his role later elevated by those who sought to establish a central authority? History tells us that Peter traveled to Rome, where he eventually faced martyrdom under Emperor Nero. But did he really establish a formal church? Or was Christianity still a decentralized movement, struggling to survive under Roman persecution? One thing is certain: Peter's death was not the end. It was only the beginning. In the next part, we unravel the moment when Christianity moved from the shadows of persecution to the halls of imperial power. A decision that would change its destiny forever. Stay with us. And don't forget to subscribe to Sacred Echoes, because history is about to take a dramatic turn. He ordered his soldiers to paint the Christian symbol on their shields. And against all odds, he won. Shortly after, in the year 313 AD, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, granting Christians the right to worship freely. The once hunted faith was now protected by the most powerful ruler in the world. But here's the paradox. Did Constantine embrace Christianity out of true belief? Or was it a political move to unite a divided empire? This moment changed history forever. No longer a persecuted sect, Christianity now had imperial favor. Bishops who once hid in the shadows now walked the halls of power. And soon, the church would face a new challenge, not from outside persecution, but from within its own ranks. Because with power comes conflict. And the church was about to be torn apart by one of the greatest theological battles of all time. Don't miss the next episode of Sacred Echoes, where we uncover the council that shaped Christianity as we know it today. Subscribe now, and let's continue this journey through the echoes of history. For nearly 3 centuries, Christianity was a faith of the outcasts. Its followers met in hidden places, whispering prayers in catacombs while the Roman Empire hunted them down. They were thrown to lions, burned as torches in Nero's gardens, tortured for refusing to bow to Caesar. And yet, they never vanished. Instead, Christianity grew stronger. But how did a faith once oppressed by Rome become the official religion of the empire? The answer lies with one man, Constantine the Great. Legend tells us that on the eve of battle, Constantine saw a vision, a cross in the sky, accompanied by the words, "In this sign, you will conquer." Christianity had survived persecution. It had gained imperial favor. But now, it faced a crisis from within. In the year 325 AD, Emperor Constantine summoned hundreds of bishops to the city of Nicaea. It was the first great council of the Christian Church, the Council of Nicaea. Why? Because a dangerous debate threatened to tear Christianity apart. A priest named Arius had a radical claim. Jesus is not fully God. Arius argued that Christ was created by God, not equal to him. Many agreed. Others, like Bishop Athanasius, fiercely opposed this view. Christ is eternal. Athanasius declared. He is of the same essence as the Father. The room erupted. Voices clashed, scrolls were slammed onto tables, the fate of Christian belief hung in the balance. Constantine, though not yet baptized, wanted unity. He needed a decision. So the council voted. And in a defining moment for Christianity, Arianism was condemned. The Church declared that Jesus Christ is God from God, light from light, true God from true God. These words became part of what we now call the Nicene Creed, a statement of faith still recited by millions today. But the battle was far from over. Arius still had powerful supporters. His ideas would not vanish overnight. And soon, the Roman Empire itself would be shaken by the struggle over Christ's divinity. What happened next would decide the course of Christianity for centuries to come. Join us in the next episode of Sacred Echoes, where we uncover the rise of Christian emperors, and the struggle for the soul of the Church. Subscribe now and continue the journey through the echoes of history. Christianity had survived persecution. It Nicaea. But imperial power. And with power, came new challenges. After the Council of Nicaea, Constantine the Great continued his Hagia Sophia, But Constantine. Should emperors decide the fate of the Church? In 337 AD, Constantinarianism, others Nicene Christianity. What followed was a tug-of-war over Christian doctrine, with emperors choosing sides, exiling bishops, and even reversing church decisions. The fate of Christian belief was no longer just in the hands of theologians. It was in the hands of emperors. Then came Theodosius the Great, a ruler who would make a decision that changed history forever. In 380 AD, Theodosius issued the Edict of Thessalonica. With one decree, he declared Nicene Christianity the only official religion of the Roman Empire. Pagan temples were shut down. Heretical teachings were suppressed. Christianity was no longer just a persecuted faith. It was now the faith of an empire. But what happens when faith and politics become one? What happens when emperors become defenders of doctrine? And could this new power lead the Church to new dangers? The next chapter of Christian history was about to unfold. A chapter filled with power struggles, betrayals, and the fall of Rome itself. Don't miss the next episode of Sacred Echoes. Subscribe now and journey deeper into the untold history of Christianity. Rome, the mighty empire that had ruled for centuries, was falling. The once unshakable city had been invaded, looted, and left in chaos. But while Rome crumbled, something unexpected happened. Christianity survived. Not only that, it adapted. It transformed. And in the ruins of an empire, a new power was about to rise. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Rome, the heart of the empire, was sacked by the Visigoths. Panic spread. People whispered, "The gods have abandoned us." Is this the end of the world? Many blamed Christianity. They believed Rome had fallen because it had turned away from the old gods. But one man had a different answer. In response to the chaos, Saint Augustine wrote one of the most influential books in history, The City of God. His message? Rome might fall, but the kingdom of God will never fall. Earthly empires rise and collapse, but the church would endure. His words would shape Christian thought for centuries. By 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire was officially dead. Barbarians ruled where Roman legions once marched. The great emperors were gone. But Christianity did not die with Rome. Instead, a new leader was emerging, not an emperor, but a bishop. The Bishop of Rome. As the Roman Empire collapsed, the papacy grew stronger. The Bishop of Rome, later known as the Pope, became the most powerful spiritual leader in the West. Kings and rulers would soon bow before him. The church was no longer just a faith. It was becoming a force of power, one that would shape the next 1,000 years of history. But with power came new dangers. Would the church remain true to its mission? Or would politics and ambition corrupt its soul? The next chapter of Christianity would be written in castles and cathedrals. A chapter of kings, crusades, and controversy. Subscribe to Sacred Echoes and join us in the next episode as we uncover the rise of the medieval church. Deus vult. God wills it. With those words, history was set in motion. The Crusades, a series of holy wars that would shake both Christendom and the Islamic world, were about to begin. But was it truly about faith? Or was something much darker hiding beneath the banners of the cross? In the year 1095, Pope Urban II stood before thousands and delivered a speech that would change the world. He spoke of Christian lands seized by Muslim forces. He painted a picture of churches burned, believers persecuted, and holy sites defiled. Then came his call to arms. Take up your swords, march to the Holy Land, and reclaim it in the name of Christ. The response? A roar of approval. Knights, peasants, kings, all vowed to fight. Some sought glory. Some sought wealth. Others truly believed they were fighting for God. But the Crusades would become more than just a religious war. The First Crusade was brutal. After a long march across Europe and the Middle East, the Crusaders captured Jerusalem in 1099. But what happened next shocked even some of their own leaders. The Crusaders, in their thirst for victory, massacred thousands, Muslims, Jews, and even some Eastern Christians. To them, it was a triumph. To history, it was a tragedy. And this was just the beginning. For 2 centuries, Crusaders and Muslim forces clashed. Great leaders rose from both sides. Richard the Lionheart, the fearless English king. Saladin, the noble Muslim general who retook Jerusalem. There were victories. There were defeats. And there were moments of honor, like when Saladin, instead of slaughtering the Crusaders, allowed Christian pilgrims to visit Jerusalem peacefully. But no matter how many battles were fought, one truth remained. The Crusades did not bring lasting peace. They left a trail of destruction, and changed Christianity forever. The Crusades expanded the power of the Church. The Pope was no longer just a spiritual leader, he commanded armies. Kings and emperors sought his approval before going to war. The Church had become a political powerhouse. But with power came corruption. Greedy nobles used the Crusades as an excuse to seize land. Church leaders became more focused on wealth than worship. And worst of all, the Crusaders eventually turned against their own. The Fourth Crusade was meant to reclaim the Holy Land. Instead, Crusaders attacked Constantinople, the heart of the Eastern Orthodox Church. They looted churches, stole relics, and destroyed one of the greatest Christian cities in history. Brother had turned against brother. The schism between Catholic and Orthodox Christianity grew deeper than ever. And the dream of a united Christendom? Shattered. So, were the Crusades truly a holy war? Or were they a battle for power, wealth, and control? One thing is certain, they changed the Church, the world, and the course of history. And as Christianity entered the medieval era, a new battle for faith was about to begin. A battle not with swords, but with ideas. The seeds of Reformation were being planted. Subscribe to Sacred Echoes and join us in the next episode as we explore the rise of the Church, and the storm that would one day tear it apart. For centuries, the Catholic Church was more than just a place of worship. It was the center of power. Kings sought its approval. Peasants feared its judgment. And for those who dared to question its authority, excommunication, silence, or worse. But beneath this grand system, something was brewing. A storm. A challenge to the very foundation of Christianity. The Reformation was coming. By the 14th and 15th centuries, the Catholic Church was at its peak of influence. It controlled kingdoms. It crowned emperors. It dictated laws. But with great power came great corruption. Priests sold indulgences, promising souls a shortcut to heaven in exchange for gold. The wealthy bought church positions, treating them as businesses rather than holy callings. The Pope ruled like a king, leading armies and waging wars. And for the common believer? Faith was no longer about a personal connection with God. It was about obeying an institution. But not everyone was willing to stay silent. Among those who dared to question the Church was a scholar named John Wycliffe. He believed the Bible, not the Pope, should be the highest authority. He translated the scriptures into English, so common people could read them. He preached against the greed and corruption of church leaders. For this, he was branded a heretic. After his death, the Church dug up his bones and burned them, as if trying to erase his influence. But the fire of rebellion had been lit. And in the years to come, it would grow into an unstoppable blaze. Then came Martin Luther. In 1517, this German monk saw firsthand the corruption in the Church. And he refused to accept it. So, in an act of defiance, he wrote 95 theses, a list of arguments against the Church's practices, and nailed them to a church door. His words spread like wildfire. He condemned indulgences as a scam. He rejected the idea that the Pope was God's voice on earth. He called for people to return to faith, not rituals. The Church declared him an outlaw. But the people? They listened. For the first time in history, a new invention changed everything. The printing press. Luther's ideas didn't just stay in one town. They spread across Europe. They reached kings, nobles, and commoners. They ignited a movement that would forever divide Christianity. The Protestant Reformation had begun. And with it, the world would never be the same. The Church, once untouchable, was now facing its greatest threat. New denominations would rise. Wars would be fought over faith. And the idea of personal salvation, not dictated by Rome, would reshape Christianity forever. But was this truly a return to pure faith? Or just the beginning of a new kind of power struggle? In the next episode of Sacred Echoes, we'll uncover the wars of religion, the rise of new churches, and the battles that shaped modern Christianity. Subscribe now and join us as we journey deeper into history. Faith was meant to bring people closer to God. But in the wake of the Reformation, faith became a reason to kill. Brother turned against brother. Nations were torn apart. From the 30 Years' War to the English Civil War, Christianity was no longer just about salvation. It was about power, control, and survival. The Protestant Reformation shattered the unity of the Catholic Church. No longer was there just one church, one pope, one doctrine. Now, there were Lutherans, Calvinists, Anglicans, and more. And each believed they held the true path to God. But the Catholic Church? It wasn't going to lose its grip without a fight. Thus began the Counter-Reformation. The Church launched the Inquisition, hunting down heretics. The Jesuit order was founded, spreading Catholic teachings with military precision. The Council of Trent redefined Catholic doctrine, making it clear there would be no compromise. Tensions erupted into the 30 Years' War, one of the deadliest conflicts in history. Catholic versus Protestant. Empire versus nation. Faith versus survival. For 3 decades, Europe was drenched in blood. Villages burned. Armies marched. Millions died, not just from battle, but from famine and disease. And in the end, no side truly won. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 redrew the religious map of Europe. Some regions remained Catholic. Others turned Protestant. And for the first time, rulers could choose their nation's religion. It was a fragile peace. And one that did little to stop the next religious war. In England, religion wasn't just a belief. It was a throne. King Henry VIII had broken from Rome, forming the Church of England. But his successors? They fought over whether England should be Catholic or Protestant. And when King Charles I pushed too hard for Catholic influence, the people revolted. The English Civil War began, a brutal conflict between the Royalists, who supported the king's divine rule, the Parliamentarians, who wanted a Protestant England with limited monarchy. After years of bloodshed, England did something unthinkable. They executed their own king. For the first time in history, a European monarch was put on trial and beheaded by his own people. It was a turning point. Religious authority was no longer absolute. Kings were no longer untouchable. And the idea of separating church from state began to take root. The wars had ended. But faith? Faith had changed forever. No longer was there one Christianity, there were many. No longer did kings rule by divine right, they ruled by politics. And as the world moved forward, religion would continue to shape history. But would it unite people? Or drive them further apart? In the next episode of Sacred Echoes, we explore the Age of Enlightenment, when science, reason, and philosophy began challenging religious authority. Subscribe now and continue the journey with us. For over 1,000 years, the Church was the unshakable foundation of society. Its word was law. Its power was absolute. But by the 17th and 18th centuries, cracks began to form. The age-old struggle between faith and reason had ignited into a full-blown revolution, one that would reshape the world forever. Scientists challenged the very fabric of the cosmos. Philosophers questioned the divine right of kings. And for the first time, human reason stood against religious dogma. Would faith survive? Or would reason dethrone the divine? It started with science. For centuries, the Church taught that the earth was the center of the universe. The sun, moon, and stars revolved around it. To question this? Heresy. Then came Galileo Galilei. With a simple telescope, he shattered centuries of belief. He saw moons orbiting Jupiter, proving not everything revolved around the earth. He observed phases of Venus, confirming that the earth was not the center of everything. The truth was undeniable. But the Church did not celebrate his findings. Instead, they dragged him to trial, branded him a heretic, and forced him to deny his discoveries. Yet, the damage was done. If the Church could be wrong about the cosmos, what else could they be wrong about? As science challenged the heavens, philosophy challenged the earth. Thinkers like Voltaire, John Locke, and Rousseau dared to ask: should kings rule because of divine right? Should individuals think for themselves instead of obeying religious dogma? Should societies be built on reason, freedom, and justice rather than faith? Their ideas spread like wildfire. And soon, they weren't just ideas anymore, they were revolutions. 1776, the American Revolution declared that human rights come from nature, not God. 1789, the French Revolution went even further, toppling monarchs, rejecting church power, and even replacing religion with the cult of reason. For the first time, people dared to ask: do we even need religion anymore? By the end of the 18th century, Christianity faced an existential crisis. Science was explaining mysteries once attributed to God. Governments were forming without the Church's guidance. And across Europe, faith seemed to be fading. Had the age of reason killed God? Or was faith simply evolving? The Enlightenment shook Christianity to its core. But did it destroy faith? Or did it force faith to adapt and fight back? In the next episode of Sacred Echoes, we uncover how Christianity transformed in the modern age, how it resisted, how it changed, and how it continues to shape the world today. Subscribe now and continue the journey with us. The 19th and 20th centuries ushered in an era unlike any before. Science, industry, and reason had revolutionized the world. But what about faith? Could Christianity survive in a world where science explained the unknown? Could it remain relevant when nations embraced democracy instead of divine rule? Could it withstand wars, revolutions, and the rise of secularism? Or was this the beginning of the end? One man, one theory, one earthquake in the foundation of belief. In 1859, Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species, introducing evolution by natural selection. For centuries, the Church taught that God created humanity in His image. The world was designed with purpose. Life did not change, it was set in place by divine will. Darwin's work challenged all of that. It suggested that humanity was not divinely crafted, but evolved. Nature was not guided by God's design, but by random mutation and survival. The world was not 6,000 years old, but billions of years in the making. The reaction? Explosive. Some embraced evolution, believing it revealed the brilliance of God's creation. Others rejected it, seeing it as a direct attack on faith. And the battle still rages today. As science shook the heavens, the Industrial Revolution reshaped the earth. The world was no longer ruled by kings and popes, it was ruled by machines, money, and power. Cities exploded in size. Factories replaced farmlands. Education and literacy spread like never before. And with these changes came a new wave of skepticism. People no longer turned to priests for truth, they turned to scientists, philosophers, and newspapers. Morality was debated in parliaments and universities, not just in churches. Wars were fought not over religion, but over ideologies, nationalism, communism, capitalism. Faith was no longer assumed, it had to compete. It wasn't just science and industry that challenged Christianity. It was new ideologies, ones that sought to replace religion altogether. Karl Marx declared that religion was a tool of oppression, a way to keep the poor obedient while the rich ruled. Sigmund Freud argued that belief in God was a psychological illusion, a relic of human weakness. Friedrich Nietzsche famously proclaimed, "God is dead." To many, it seemed like faith was fading, a relic of the past in an age of progress. But then, something unexpected happened. faith fought back. Despite predictions that religion would die out, Christianity evolved. Evangelical movements surged, bringing faith to millions in new, emotional ways. Christian charity and activism responded to social issues, proving faith could still shape the world. New leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. used Christian ideals to fight for justice and equality. Faith did not disappear. It adapted. It transformed. It endured. The 19th and 20th centuries tested Christianity like never before. Science, war, industry, and ideology threatened to erase faith from history. But faith survived. The question is, what happens next? In the final episode of Sacred Echoes, we explore the future of faith. Will Christianity continue to evolve, or will the modern world finally leave it behind? Subscribe now and be part of the journey. For centuries, Christianity has survived empires rising and falling, wars tearing nations apart, and philosophies challenging its core beliefs. But now, in the 21st century, the greatest battle is not against kings, revolutions, or even science. It is against something far more powerful. A world that moves too fast for ancient truths. A culture that replaces faith with technology and entertainment. A generation that questions everything, including the very existence of God. So the question is not just, will Christianity survive? The question is, does the world still need faith? The age of information, a blessing or a curse? Never before has humanity had access to so much knowledge. In an instant, anyone can read the Bible in any language. Learn about every world religion, philosophy, and scientific discovery. Debate theology, challenge beliefs, and question traditions with just a few clicks. But with this explosion of information comes a new kind of crisis. If every belief system is available, how do we know which one is true? If every argument has a counterargument, does absolute truth even exist? And if science can explain the universe, is there still room for faith? For many, this overload of ideas leads to doubt, skepticism, and even rejection of Christianity. In some countries, church attendance has dropped to historic lows. In others, people still believe in God, but in their own way, without traditional religion. So, does this mean Christianity is fading away? Not quite. Faith in unexpected places. In the West, churches may be closing. But in places like China, Africa, and South America, Christianity is exploding in growth. In China, where faith is often restricted, millions secretly gather to worship. In Africa, Christianity is spreading faster than anywhere else, shaping entire cultures. In South America, new movements bring faith to the streets, blending tradition with modern revival. The global shift is undeniable. By 2050, Africa may become the center of Christianity, with over 1 billion believers. The faith is moving from the West to the global South, reshaping its future. Christianity is not disappearing. It is moving. It is changing. It is adapting to a new world. A new kind of Christian. What does the future of Christianity look like? Megachurches with millions of online followers? Decentralized faith, where believers meet in homes instead of cathedrals? Christianity blended with modern spirituality, mindfulness, and self-discovery? Or will it become something else entirely? One thing is clear. Christianity has never stayed the same. It has always evolved to meet the times. And now, it is evolving once again. The final question. Technology is advancing at an unimaginable speed. The world is more connected than ever. Artificial intelligence, space exploration, and even ideas of digital immortality are changing how we see life and existence. So in this rapidly shifting world, will faith still have a place? Will Christianity continue to guide humanity? Or will it become just a memory? And most importantly, what does faith mean to you, in this era of endless possibilities? The answer to these questions is not found in history books. It is found in you. Subscribe to Sacred Echoes and join the conversation. What do you think? Will faith survive the modern world? Comment below.